Hi, thank you for logging on to sallyhughesbeauty.com. I wrote about illuminating powders recently, and it took me slightly by surprise because I had so many questions afterwards. And I suppose sometimes I'm guilty of thinking a product's quite straightforward and then not really realising until afterwards that actually it's something that throws a number of people. And illuminating powders are so ubiquitous this season. There are so many new ones that you do need to know how to use them. So if it's something you're not sure of, hopefully your questions will be answered in this. I hadn't realised quite how much they threw people. So as I say, there are just so many new illuminating powders. It is the big thing. It's sort of, you know, it's partly to do with the trend for making skin look healthy rather than made up, and illuminating powders are a really great way to sort of mimic the glow of youthful, healthy skin. They come in lots of different forms. If they are for all over your face, they're generally in a loose powder format. And I'm not going to talk about those too much today because I've spoken about loose powder quite a lot in the past. But if you're somebody who has dull skin, quite often that goes hand in hand with dryness or dehydration, and I'm prone to dullness myself, then you want to set your foundation and concealer with a loose illuminating powder. This one by NARS is really nice. There's a lot of love for it among my readers, I know. And you would just, in the same way as I've shown you before, you just take your puff and you kind of roll the powder and press it in to set your foundation, and then you just dust off the excess. However, I don't really want to focus on those today. The powders that seem to have thrown people are the pressed variety. Now, I can see how that has happened because pressed illuminating powders do one of two jobs depending on the product. The first thing you can use them for is to give your face an all-over glow. So, for example, this Dolce & Gabbana one is basically just a pressed version of the NARS one I just showed you. It's basically just a setting powder that has a little bit of glimmer in it, and they've called it an illuminating powder. It's an absolutely lovely product, but it's not for highlighting. Most illuminating powders are for highlighting specific areas and for adding a natural glow to specific parts of the face. So those make up the lion's share of illuminating powders. For example, Guerlain, who illumination is their thing, they are absolutely mad for it, they're brilliant at it. If you look at a compact like this, you'll see a more classic version of illuminating powder. What it has is it has different natural tones that appear naturally in the skin with a little bit of iridescence in them. Now, if I was to put that all over my face, and I know some people do, I don't particularly want that look. It looks a bit too done for me, it's a bit too space age. I just want to focus on key areas where I almost want to mimic the effect of the light bouncing off my bones. So places like cheekbones, nose, chin, and so on. There are lots and lots of versions. So you have Bobbi Brown. You can see how much I've used her brightening powder, but she's also recently come out with a new colourway. And then there's also a fantastic one that I'm really keen on by Yves Saint Laurent, which is recently out, an Erin Lauder. Again, you can see how much I've used this. It's a slightly more bronzy colour, but again, it has that iridescence in it that sort of looks really natural and glowing. Bare Minerals have a great one. There are lots of really good ones, and they're mostly used in the same way. Now, the way I would use these is after I had set my foundation with a loose powder, I would want to pick out certain areas for an illuminating powder. So, to use the Guerlain as an example, take a fat brush. You don't want it to be fat as a loose powder brush. You want it slightly smaller, but you want it bigger than a blusher brush because you're using bigger areas. Just sweep the brush over the entire palette, all of the colours. You take your brush and you just want it on cheeks, chin, tip of the nose, maybe a bit on the forehead, just where the light would naturally hit. Now, if you're somebody who uses the double blusher technique that I've shown in a previous video for The Guardian, where I use a kind of base neutral coloured blush or a bronzer and then a pop of colour over the top, this can take away your need for a blusher. You can just do this instead of the base blusher and put your pop of colour over the top. And it's just adding light to the face. I tend to focus on those areas I don't really want it over my whole face because you want to see the difference. You want to see a little bit of light and shade. You want it to pop a little bit. You can do that, I use the Guerlain one there, but you can do it with the Bobby version, you can do it with Erin, you can do it with all sorts, you can do it with classic meteorites, the loose pearls. This is the Erin one just to show you exactly the same technique. And then you can follow up with your pop of colour blusher over the top. There's a third type of illuminating powder. Now, the third type is a very sparkly version. So there is another Yves Saint Laurent one here, which is very sort of iridescent white powder. There's a Chanel one, which I like very much. Again, you can see how much I've enjoyed testing it. And it's much more, for want of a better word, glittery. It's much more pearlescent and shimmery, and it would maybe feel too much in all the areas I've just shown you. In those instances, when you have a very, very sort of glimmery illuminating powder that's almost a sparkle, you want to concentrate your features down, your area down even less to make it even smaller, or else you're in danger of getting a bit space age. So for that, I would take a smaller brush again, a blusher brush, an angled blusher brush, and so on. Which one shall I use? Maybe the Chanel one. Load up your brush with the sparkly powder. Tap off the excess. And now just direct it in concentrated areas. So stroke it along your cheekbones is a preferred location for me. So right at the top of your cheekbones, just where the light would hit. Not as a full cheek base, just here on the bones. You can also use your finger to apply it to the corners of the eyes, which has a really nice sort of widening, opening effect. You can just use your finger or a brush, whatever you prefer. And you can also, top tip, take your ring finger and you can just pop a tiny bit on your lower lip. Have some gloss or some lip gloss or lip balm or lipstick underneath so it can grip, otherwise it'll obviously just slide straight off. And that can give you the effect of a fuller lower lip. But like I say, you really want to sort of ghettoise those very sparkly ones to quite precise areas, or else it just kind of gets a bit Barbarella. So really it's a question of the look you want. Do you want the sparkle to show up, or do you just want an all over glow? If you have dull skin all over your face, do an illuminating loose powder. If you just want a little sort of glow in the larger areas of your face, use one that's of mid iridescence. If you want to really pick out certain features like your cheekbones, your brow bones, or your inner eyes, then use an even glittery, more glittery one still. You can obviously up the ante if you're going for a night out and you just want a bit of spangle, pop it wherever you like. But remember, the more glitter you put everywhere, the less it's going to show up. The whole point of it is it needs to pop out. So if you're too heavy-handed with it, you might as well not bother. But they are a fantastic way to really kind of restore youthful glow. A couple of sort of contraindications. If you have rosacea and bumpy, uneven surface skin, I would avoid. The iridescence in illuminating powders will really highlight the unevenness. Ditto if you have lots of scars, maybe from previous suffering of acne, for example, they're not going to do you any favours. You might just want to take a very, very illuminating powder and just put it in a non-scarred area like on your eyes or top of your cheekbones or whatever, but you want to avoid that uneven skin. And ditto, if you have very dry, flaky skin, you might want to give them a wide berth until you've exfoliated properly and just made sure that that area is as smooth as possible. Any unevenness will be highlighted. I hope that that clears up illuminating powders for you. You are, as ever, welcome to ask questions underneath, and I will definitely try to answer them. Thanks very much. Bye.